Coming up on the bottom line, we've got Jason Snell of Macworld to talk in depth about Windows 8. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's the iPad.
Try GoToMeeting free for 30 days. Visit gotomeeting.com/techpodcasts.
Yesterday, Apple introduced its Apple iPad, its tablet computer. A lot of people are upset about what's not in it. I'm actually curious about what is in it. Jason, they introduced the A4 processor, and I think it's a system on a chip, actually. What do you think about Apple integrating all of their stuff together instead of using the processor that's in the iPhone and the processor that's in their notebooks? They went with their own stuff. What do you think about that?
Apple likes to go their own way and control their own destiny, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. I mean, in the 90s, that was one of the reasons the Mac started falling apart, is that they were relying on all this proprietary technology and ports and things like that. I think in this case, though, it's the other kind of thing. It's like the reason they built Safari instead of relying on Internet Explorer on the Mac. They felt like they needed to make the best products, they needed to control their own destiny. So they bought this company, PA Semi, which was a company that designs systems on a chip, and put them to work. And this is the first real evidence of the fruits of that labor.
What do you think about the fact that this thing still syncs to another device? It's not a standalone device yet. That kind of, my heart sunk when I saw that USB cable. I was like, maybe it can update its own podcasts, but it can't do that yet. What do you think about this idea of keeping it tethered to a machine? Is this a good idea, bad idea?
I think Apple's just got so much of an infrastructure built up over the last few years for the iPod and the iPhone that it's going to be hard for them to completely extract it. However, the iPad is a step closer, and I think they're going to keep inching that way. What we discovered is that iPad has file sharing. It actually will have a share that you can mount and transfer files back and forth that applications can write to. So we're starting to see these trends, and I'm pretty sure, if not on this version of the iPad, that in a future version, Apple is finally starting to peel these devices off of the computer. Because you're absolutely right, Apple is very comfortable having them be tethered to a home base. And if you use, I've been using an Android phone, the Nexus 1, for a little while, and it's amazing the way that product is designed. It's as if there aren't computers in the world. It's just all by itself. And Apple hasn't done that, but the iPad is inching in that direction.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping it would be kind of like the Apple TV, where it could be tethered or it could be its own standalone device, but they didn't really do that with this one.
It's close. I mean, they could if they, and there's possibly a software update coming in the summer, iPhone 4.0, that might actually bring more of those features on. I think they want to go there. I think they want to make it not mandatory that you have that computer. But again, the infrastructure is just so built up for the iPhone and the iPod to sync with a computer that it's going to take them a little time.
So now they introduced a version of iWork, 3 different applications that are going to be on the iPad. Do you think this is almost like an invitation for Microsoft to put Office on there? I mean, Microsoft's actually had a pretty good relationship with Apple, well, on and off, putting on Office for OS X. I know Microsoft doesn't really make a lot of products for the handhelds other than, I think, the Bing app. Do you think this will probably inch them over to make an actual iPad app?
That's a great question. I'd never even thought of that. I kind of doubt it. I mean, the thing about the iWork apps on there is that they will save out in Microsoft file formats, and they'll read them in, presumably, because that's what the iWork on the desktop apps do. So, Microsoft might look at it and say, well, that's great. You can build your Office stuff on, on the Mac and then transfer it over. Maybe not. Maybe they look at that and say, wow, we've got a real opportunity to sell our own apps here. I don't know. I kind of guess not, but certainly by putting iWork on there, Apple's sending a message that this isn't just a toy device, a device for the living room. It actually is a device that business people can use. And that was interesting, because if they hadn't mentioned those apps, I don't think people would have thought that.
Now that I'm thinking about it, actually, Microsoft does have web apps now, so you probably could run Office stuff right on the iPad. Oh, there's a whole curious other diversion there. Do you see any foreshadowing with the iPhone 4G or the iPhone 4.0? We've seen the software on the iPad. It's different. It's got the applications. They look more like desktop applications in some respects.
Right.
I mean, I'm in love with the actual iPod in there because you can actually do playlist management. Crazy idea, I know.
It's like iTunes, basically.
Yeah, it's iTunes. I'm just surprised they didn't do that with the iPhone. Do you think that any of the features we saw yesterday are going to be featured in the next iPhone or iPhone OS?
I think so. The iPad is running basically iPhone OS 3.2, so it is an incremental version of what's on the iPhone. I'm assuming that they're going to announce iPhone 4.0 and ship it this summer, and that will go across all these devices. So some of these features that we're seeing probably will come over to the iPhone, and both devices will get some new features with iPhone 4.0. Some other stuff, like the richness of the interfaces, I think are going to stay on the iPad just because of the screen real estate. I think that the iPhone screen is so small that some of that stuff you just can't do. But I'm with you. Some basic playlist management and things like that. It would be great to see that come to the iPhone too.
Yeah, I also thought that was kind of strange because you can manage your email on an iPhone, but you can't manage the playlist. And I think email is actually a little bit more cumbersome than your playlists.
I agree.
Any wish list for you on this one? Is there something you want out of it that's not there, or things that you are enjoying about it already?
Well, the thing that I'm really interested by is some of the content consumption stuff. I mean, we saw the iBooks app and the iBooks store announced by Apple, but with third-party apps, there's a huge amount of stuff that could go in there. I assume Amazon's going to do a Kindle version for the iPad, which will be interesting. That'll be some interesting competition there. All the comic book readers, comic books haven't had a good digital reader yet. And the Kindle isn't it because it's black and white, and the iPhone isn't it because it's too small. But there are all these iPhone apps that do comic book reading, and those guys have got to be looking at this with the widest eyes and saying, oh my God, now we've got our device, and revving their apps to support that larger screen, because that could be, for the comic book industry, the iPad actually could be revolutionary. Yeah. I think that's... and I'm a comic book geek a little bit, so I'm kind of into that. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm a big geek when it comes to that. And my favorite thing is that I think there's a connection, actually, because there's Steve Jobs, who owns a big piece of Disney, which I think is buying Marvel or bought Marvel already. So
yes.
How soon before Marvel comics are on the iPad? I mean, that's going to make it way more interesting to me anyway. Jason Snell,
there was
go ahead.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. All right. Well, there was a Marvel Comics executive was quoted yesterday as being disappointed that there isn't Flash on the iPad, because Marvel's got this Flash subscription service that they do that you view through a web browser. It's just like, wow, talk about missing the point. This is such an opportunity for them. They license their comics to these iPhone comic book readers. For all these comic publishers, it's a huge opportunity. So to grouse about there not being Flash on this device, get over it and get your stuff on it. It's going to be a big hit for that audience.
Yeah, I've actually seen some Image comics that are on there, and it's a totally different experience. You swipe through panels, not exactly the best reading experience, and I'm thinking this actually will work very well for that. And
Absolutely.
Since comic books are short, it's not exactly like your eyes are going to be too strained too long.
Right.
I guess that's all the time we got right now. Jason Snell from Macworld, thanks a lot for being with us. And of course, you can find everything he's got, at Macworld. And I hope we can get TechView working on the iPad soon, because I know it doesn't do Flash, but you can watch us on YouTube or Blip, because those work. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.
Production services provided by Rundown Creator. Big League Production, small producer price. RundownCreator.com.